All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to give it a few more minutes and start us off with a little bit of theme music for this important presentation that we're going to be doing today on Don't Let Them In, protecting yourself from scams and cyber threats. So I'm going to give it just a minute. I'm going to start the music. We'll get started after we have a few more people join us, but sit back and just uh, give me just a second before we get started. All right. Okay, sorry. That's enough of that. I just had to start us off with a little bit of mood music. If you're not familiar with that, that is the theme song to Jaws, um, which, if anybody remembers seeing that movie for the first time, it was quite scary and ominous. Just thinking about the sharks that were swimming, really the big shark that was swimming around out there waiting to eat you. So. Anyway, welcome everybody to today's webinar entitled Don't Let Them In, Protecting Yourself from Scams and Cyber Threats. We've got a lot to go through today. Some of this may be familiar to you and a good reminder. Some of this might be new or news to you. Either way, I think putting a little bit of time to this particular topic that we all seem to be potentially at risk to make sure that we are not potentially shark bait in the in the ocean out there. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover today. Just as in the days of old, we have vampires out there that are ready to walk through your door. And if you're not familiar with the folklore about vampires, they are not they can't hurt you if you don't let them in your house. Okay, you have to invite them in order for you to be a victim. So we don't want to let them in. We want to keep the vampires outside. All right. We're going to talk about some of today's most common scams: uh, phishing, smishing, vishing, quishing, all these ishings, different types of potential scams and how they get to us. Business email compromises, tech support scams, online marketplace scams, investment in currency scams, romance and relationship scams, and the newest version of AI-enabled impersonation scams, or otherwise known as deep fakes. So, lots to cover today. But just to start us off, why is this able to happen? Look, the reality is there is, as far back as history it has been recorded, there has been somebody that has been trying to take advantage of another person. So scam artists are nothing new. We are just in a new day and age where these things seem to be able to be done more frequently and more successfully, uh, surprisingly, because of the use of technology in how they get to us. So, why is it that they can get away with it? All right. Why do we fall victim to these things? Well, how cyber criminals trick us. Why do we let them in the door when we know that we shouldn't? Well, they fear on our emotion. I'm sorry, they prey on our emotions. All right, primarily in the sense of urgency and fear. They impersonate authorities, so we have this natural tendency to provide deference and respect and comply with those that have authority over us or that we think that have authority over us. There are, we are naturally curious. Okay. Um, we are, I'm sorry, let me make sure that I've admitted everybody. Okay, looks like everybody is participating. Good. So cyber criminals are able to exploit our curiosity and our potential for rewards. Everybody likes to, find a dollar on the sidewalk, or pick up a quarter when they run across it, or maybe you don't. Maybe you just save yourself for a $10 bill. But when you find those unexpected rewards, we sometimes grab at them, not really knowing what the downsides are. And and trust, right? So we have this human innate to lean towards trusting other people, because we have a desire to believe that people have our best intentions at heart, when maybe that's not necessarily always true. So this is why we are victimized by cyber criminals, or just scam artists in general. Um, Interestingly, my wife and I are preparing to take a trip to Europe, and one of her big fears is getting pickpocketed, which is a real thing, right? So taking precautions to make sure that we are not potential victims of these types of crimes is important. And taking small steps. A lot of the times, it's really the small steps in being aware and knowledgeable about the potential for these things is really the best first step. So, but here's the important upfront caveat. If you don't know it's real, for sure, with 100% confidence, be suspicious. Okay? Just have a little sense of suspicion. Oh, and it doesn't mean that you have to live your life in permanent paranoia, but always kind of have that in the back of your mind, that is this real, or is this potentially something that might be a trick, or a way of scamming me. So have that sense of curiosity, but also that sense of potential suspicion. So what does it cost us as a country that we seem to be victims of these scams on an annual basis? Well, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center received 859,000 cybercrime complaints in 2024. Just 1 year, right? Nearly, that's approaching nearly 1 million complaints during the course of 1 year. And over the course of that year, the U.S. reported losses. Now, mind you, this is not including the unreported losses as well. U.S. reported losses in 2023 of $16 billion. And I'm sure since 2023, since that data is a little bit dated, that number has probably gone up. Okay. So, 16, probably approaching 18, or maybe even $20 billion every year in people losing their money due to cyber scams and cyber criminals. And the really sad thing about it is that over 60% of that loss had some aspect of direct human involvement. That is, we as people acting on, biting the bait. We're actually taking the bait and exposing ourselves to these things, and making us the entry point. Okay. And the really important thing to note is that older adults, so those that are 60 and over, of that 16 billion, represented almost 5 billion. Okay, over a quarter of those losses were by seniors. Arguably, those people that have the least capacity to suffer those types of losses. Okay, so that's why this is important. It can happen to all of us. Okay, and candidly, for some of those of us on this call today, it probably has happened, right? But the real sad thing is for those that are the most vulnerable and in least position to afford those losses, are the ones that are seeing some of the most significant targeted attacks. So sad, but again, this is the reality that we are living in today. So let's talk about some of these different types of attacks. So the most common one is this thing called phishing, right? And it's not obviously fishing in this traditional sense. We're not catching a fish, but this is the cyber criminal putting that line out in the water and seeing what they can hook. Okay. So this is a cyber scam where attackers pretend to be a trusted human, a trusted person, company, organization, and they're using that to trick someone into revealing sensitive information. So that might be your passwords or credit card numbers or bank account information or login information, and using that to take some degree of harmful action using deceptive emails or text messages or phone calls. Now, mind you, as we go through this list, okay, this is not a single thing that they're going to use, right? This is a list of various potential risks, but they are oftentimes used in combination, right? So you might get that phishing email that says, you're a winner of something, and that is what starts it. And then the ball starts rolling into some of these other things. So just because you're a victim of one thing, or right, does not necessarily mean that some of these other things that we're going to review are not going to be attempted as well. Okay, so that's phishing. The next one, let me just keep going on this. So spotting phishing emails, right? So check your sender's address. Okay, and I gave an example here. So you@gmail.com. Well, if you use your email address and you get this email address where maybe there's a misspelling, right? I highlighted the one in red here. If you see a misspelling of the email address, be suspicious, okay? And be wary of unexpected requests. Also, if you aren't aware, sometimes email addresses can be masked to reflect something that might look familiar, but they actually go or came from somewhere else. So what you can do is, I'm going to use my mouse here, you can hover over the link, and oftentimes it will bring up what the actual email address link is, that is where it actually came from, or where you might be sending it to. So a little bit of trick there. Look at the spelling of the email address, make sure that's legit, and also check to see where it came from by hovering over and actually seeing what the computer, your computer, says that came from. Okay, so watch out for poor grammar and urgency. And if you're a spell checker like Leslie oftentimes is, you will notice that my grammar and urgency are not correct on this slide. So look for poor grammar spelled with two M's, by the way, and urgency spelled with a C. So keep an eye out for those types of things, because things will come from places where English is not their first language, and they may not necessarily have proper spelling or grammar in the communication that they're sending to you. Those are a little bit of red flags to keep an eye on. All right. So common phishing examples would be an email that appears to come from your bank asking you to verify your account. Well, if you click on that link and you put in your bank account number, you have just given it to them. Okay. Another example would be a text message claiming you have an unpaid package delivery fee, and it gives you a link. Okay. That's a potential opening for them. Sometimes we've seen these. It looks like an email from Microsoft or Google or Apple or some other legitimate company that maybe you actually do have some account with, and they provide